What is going on, guys? It is HappyCloudGamer. Welcome back to my channel. Well, it's Monday and there was something quite interesting happening on the June 18th. There was an interview with Phil Spencer and with Gamelab, and it was quite interesting. It was a long interview, but I cut out with that talking about xCloud. There's a lot of great in this interview that is not focusing on xCloud, so I've cut that away. I will have a link below to the whole interview because there's a lot of great stuff in that interview. So let's go into
to what we're trying to build.
And to be clear, I am not anti-console. I love consoles. But we've talked about xCloud a couple. We talked about xCloud a couple of times. We haven't really dove into that. So let's talk a little bit more about your work with xCloud and game streaming. A lot of different trials. Not a lot of visibility yet for us and the public about what the plans are with xCloud going forward. We've seen some different streaming plays come from folks like from Google, and Amazon's working on some things, and NVIDIA. So where are we at with xCloud, and what should we expect to see over the next little bit?
Yeah, we launched our preview, was it October of last year? So still less than a year. We've had hundreds of thousands of people come in and help us preview and learn, which has been important to us. The other thing that's been happening on the back, which our customers don't necessarily see, is our creators are learning. Creators are really interested in what kind of games do people want to play in a streaming environment. How do they play? Is session length different? Where are the areas where people drop out? Like all of this, it's new, right? It's a new canvas for us as creators of people playing games that were originally meant for one device, now ending up on multiple devices. So I just wanted to thank both all the creators that have been along this journey with us, as well as all the players that have helped. As you said, we're going to bring xCloud into Game Pass. We've talked about that. It's a natural way to extend where you can play your Game Pass library. Is to add the ability to stream to mobile devices to go do that. We'll be talking more about that pretty soon. It's actually not too far off now, where we'll give more clarity on both kind of the business model, which I think people really like, as well as the library of games to go play and where you can go play that. So we're close. We feel good about the tech. We feel like we've learned a ton. We're still busy putting hundreds of thousands of more blades in Azure data centers around the planet. To enable us to have a pretty broad launch when this goes out. And I think it'll have an impact in a lot of places, some expected and likely some unexpected.
And just one more on xCloud, just from a technical perspective, I think a lot of people were skeptical about the idea of cloud gaming in the first place. The first main consumer application came from a different company. But I think over time, the market in general has become a lot more comfortable. Just over the last 6-9 months, we've seen that in general, cloud can work. And I'm sure that Microsoft has its own way to make it even better. Just in general, though, I mean, should gamers really be thinking about streaming as a way to really get that full experience?
Yeah, this is one of the areas where maybe we differ from some of the language out there. I've never tried to position xCloud as a replacement for your gaming PC or for a console. I think it augments the experience that I have. For me, like you were talking about, I like to go sit down in front of the big screen and play on a console, play on my Xbox. I'm sitting here at my PC rig right now, and I like to play here, but I'm not always in front of those two devices. And I want to be able to go play where I want to go play. On the device that I choose. So, I don't think the highest fidelity place to go play a game is going to be streamed from an Azure data center or anybody's data center anytime soon. But that doesn't mean it's not a viable place to go play, and it's not an option that you should take. So, we're building this hardware, we're building this capability so to enable you to go play the games that you want to go play, but not as a replacement to where you go play them today. And I think that's just a fundamental difference.
It's part of the overall ecosystem for you.
It is, yeah. We think about an Xbox gamer as somebody who can play their Xbox games with their Xbox community on many devices. And we want to make sure you have the best experience on the device that you're playing on, which is kind of our smart delivery technology, that the device that you're on, you should have the bits that show up the best on that device. And different devices have different capabilities. There's no doubt about that. The nice thing about me playing on my Android phone when I'm sitting, at a waiting room somewhere is I can do it, and I can't do that with my console there. So it has unique advantages, but I wouldn't say the unique advantage is fidelity, or even responsiveness. There is latency. The speed of light still exists. And the electrons actually have to go over the internet. So there are definitely going to be there'll be things about cloud streaming that don't match exactly what you do on PC and console, but there are advantages that it has. And I just want you to feel like you're connected to Xbox wherever you decide to play.
Now, when we talk about streaming, one of the aspects of that is it sort of transitions to a discussion of how the overall game industry has changed in sense of you have new competitors and new kinds of companies coming into this industry. And I did a piece in February, and you said something pretty interesting. And I want to give you a chance to clarify and amplify your remarks. Now, this was a story, it's got to be clear. This was for a publication called Protocol. It was not about the gaming incumbents. It was not about Sony. It was not about Nintendo. It wasn't really about even Microsoft. It was about how big tech companies like Amazon and Google and Facebook are getting into this market a little bit more. And I got to quote you. What you said was, when you talk about Nintendo and Sony, we have a ton of respect for them, but we see Amazon and Google as the main competitors going forward. That's not to disrespect Nintendo and Sony, but the traditional gaming companies are somewhat out of position. I guess they could try to recreate Azure, but we've invested tens of billions of dollars in cloud over the years. Now, I know you weren't trying to diss Nintendo and Sony, but the market has changed, and there are different aspects that come into delivering a next generation entertainment experience. So can you just talk a little bit about how the changing landscape competitively?
Yeah. I seem to remember the ripples that were created from that. You and I made some noise on that one. Here's where I'm going to start on that one. I'll say I have a ton of respect for the companies that have helped build the gaming industry that I love. It's been an incredibly important part of my life, my entertainment as a kid, my experiences with my daughters as they've been growing up. And frankly, my professional career has mainly been about this industry. So when I think about the companies that have been part of creating what the industry is today, I always struggle to say that our strategy at Microsoft is to eliminate those companies or to somehow, create a world where they can't thrive. I've said it before that having a strong Sony, having a strong Nintendo, PlayStation and Nintendo, they matter in games industry, and we're not building a strategy that's trying to preclude those companies from having success. And I know that's hard for some to hear, and they hear it and they think it's I'm lying somehow, but we ship games there. As those companies are looking for potential cloud partners, we're more than happy to try to help, because I think it's an important thing for us as an industry that we respect our history and how we got here together. Competing in many areas, yes, and we do compete with Sony and Nintendo in many areas, but also recognizing that this industry is growing incredibly quickly right now, and it has more global influence than it's ever had. And there's real opportunity for us to take a player-centered approach and not a device-centered approach as an industry. And those things can help the industry grow and have more impact. When I think about our other large tech competitors as Microsoft, and I sit on the senior leadership team at Microsoft, and I see all the conversations and the competition that's having with that Microsoft has with those companies. Those for me are not companies that are native to the game industry. And I just want to make sure that as this industry evolves, as the business models evolve, and as we're trying to innovate in new ways, and we're creating new social structures in our industry, and we're meeting new players, that the history of what we've learned in getting here over the decades matters in terms of how we navigate forward. So I guess my comments are just more about respect for how we got here as an industry and the progress that we've made, and looking at other players who don't have a history in this business coming in, and just wanting to ensure as an industry we protect what we have and we grow it in a thoughtful way.
Now, you've talked about the future of gaming is built on the pillar of 3 C's, right? Community, cloud, content.
Content, community, and cloud. Yeah.
Right, so content, community, and cloud. Okay, and you obviously would think that you're well positioned in all 3 of those pillars: content, community, cloud. And then, but obviously, as we talk about whether it's the Nintendos and Sonys on the one hand, or the Amazons and Googles on the other, different kinds of strength on those different pillars, right? In terms of how you position yourself vis-a-vis them, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So when we were building our kind of evolving our strategy as a leadership team for where we're trying to go, we actually tried to erase us and any other specific company and just say, what do we think a gaming platform that's going to succeed over the next decade needs to have as core competencies and capabilities? And that's where we came up with the 3 C's of content, community, and cloud. And it led to us doing some things like, as we've talked about, really investing in our content, our first party content, because as we looked, we said that's an area we need to do more. And we've done that. And our community, making sure we're bringing Xbox Live to every endpoint that somebody wants to play on, whether it's our own device or someone else's device. We want you to be able to stay connected to your community wherever you go. And cloud's probably the hardest one for a lot of the kind of incumbent game companies to compete on, just because it's such a capital investment to go create what a few companies Amazon and Microsoft have created on the planet of a global cloud infrastructure that we have. But we built the kind of modeling of 3 C's without thinking about our strengths. And I also and this is a little bit longer, but I also understand that 3 C's is not what a customer cares about. What I care about is I want to play my games. I want to be able to play them wherever I am. I want to be able to play with you, my friends, wherever I go play. And I just want that to seamlessly work across every device that I see. So the customer benefit is the games that I want to play with my friends wherever I am. The infrastructure that we think you need is great content, a community to stay connected to people across all devices, and a cloud infrastructure to enable that. And there are very few companies that are positioned for that.
That's right. And you talked a lot about putting players at the center of the experience, and that can involve a lot of what you might call rights or policy issues, whether it's cross-play, whether it's buying a game for one platform and having that future upgrade path. But one thing we haven't talked a lot about that I think a lot of people out there just don't even really know about is a program called Xbox All Access. Which is really taking away that several $100 upfront cost and letting people buy not only the hardware, but also subscribe to the software for a monthly fee. I think it's around $20-25 right now. It's not a major program, but once again, when we look at other industries like say cell phones, very few, at least in this country, people don't think about spending $1,000 on a cell phone. They pay for it monthly, whether it's through the device manufacturer themselves or their carrier. And that model is something that you have experimented with. But how much should we see you driving that forward in the next generation here with Xbox All Access, letting people finance and buy the machine and subscribe to the software all for a relatively low monthly price?
Yeah, I think Xbox All Access is going to be critical to both our launch for Xbox Series X, as well as just the overall kind of generation. We, as you said, many things, frankly, in our program, we test and learn and flight as we go. We don't necessarily step function things that we do on the hardware capability, or even on things like Xbox All Access business models. So we want to bring our whole customer base along, and we want to offer options and opportunities and learn.
So what did you think about the interview? I found it really interesting, really great interview. I think Phil Spencer was talking about right now, and we have to remember Xbox is moving out a new console, next generation console, so they're not going to be focusing on xCloud. This is something they want to have. You saw in an interview here, they were not that focused on talking xCloud is the future, but believe me, next year and when the console's been out a couple of years, they're gonna focus a lot around xCloud. Trust me. So like, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next day. Bye.